right, let's get right into it. In this explainer, we're going to break down the arguments from a pretty controversial YouTube video, one that got a lot of people talking. It's called The Scarcity of Black Entrepreneur Billionaires. Our goal here is just to walk through its claims step by step to see exactly what case it's trying to make. So the whole thing kicks off with this really provocative question. It's the central pillar of the entire argument. And the video uses the United States, what it calls the land of the greatest opportunity, as ground zero for its investigation. To really set the scene, the source points to the just staggering size of the American economy. We're talking about a GDP of over $25 trillion. So the thinking here is, if you can make it anywhere, you can make it here. It's presented as the ultimate test case for creating massive wealth. Okay, so section 1. How does the source even begin to tackle that huge question? It starts by laying out what it calls the American paradox, and it does that by comparing wealth across different groups. And here's the first bit of data it uses to make its point. Now, get this. The video highlights a population of around 350,000 Taiwanese Americans, which has produced 11 billionaires. It then puts that right next to the 14 billionaires from a population of roughly 49 million Black Americans. And that line of reasoning continues. The source brings up another comparison. About 5.4 million Indian Americans have produced 12 billionaires. Again, the video contrasts that number with the 14 billionaires from the much larger Black American population. The analysis then goes a layer deeper, asking, okay, so who are these 14 Black American billionaires? According to the source, half of them, 7 of them, made their fortunes in sports, music, or movies. The other half, it says, came from more traditional business and investment. From there, the video broadens its argument, making a whole series of other claims about the U.S. It states that the nation's poorest towns are mostly Black majority, that these areas see declines in order and cleanliness, that other groups are overrepresented in high-skilled jobs, and finally, that the word racism is used too often. All right, so after laying out its case in the United States, the video zooms out. It expands its analysis to the rest of the Americas, using whole countries as new case studies to try and build its argument. And Haiti is the first major international example. The video really hammers this point home. Haiti has been an independent, almost entirely Black nation for more than 200 years, yet today it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. The source uses this to push back against the idea that colonialism is the only reason for modern economic problems. Next up, the argument moves to Brazil. The video points out that over half of Brazil's huge population is Black or of mixed African heritage. And yet, it claims that out of Brazil's 69 billionaires, not a single one is Black. It also states that this same demographic is the country's poorest and least educated. The source then looks at a few Black-majority Caribbean nations, and it does acknowledge they have a high GDP per person, but it then immediately claims their economies are totally dependent on tourists from America and Europe. The video ends this point with a pretty blunt statement. They produce, manufacture, or research nothing. So from the Americas, the argument jumps across the Atlantic. The third part of this analysis takes us to Africa itself, where the video presents another set of comparisons to support its big idea. The focus here is on Liberia, a nation founded way back in 1847 by former American slaves. The source argues that even with this unique connection to the U.S., the country has struggled. And to illustrate this, it makes a pretty wild claim that Facebook's overhead costs, not its revenue, its costs, are 19 times bigger than Liberia's entire GDP. And that leads to what might be the most dramatic comparison in the whole video. It claims that the relatively small population of about 5 million white South Africans has produced 4 billionaires. And that's the exact same number as the roughly 1 billion Black people living across all of Central, East, and West Africa combined, with all 4 of those billionaires coming from just one country, Nigeria. For its last big piece of evidence, the analysis moves to one more continent, Europe. This is the final geographical case study the video presents. And the central claim here is incredibly direct. According to the source, in an economy roughly the same size as America's, $25 trillion, and with a Black population of around 10 million, Europe has produced exactly 0 Black billionaires. To expand on that, the video says that across major European countries, the UK, France, Germany, Black communities are consistently among the lowest earners. And in a pattern it claims is similar to the US, the very few high net worth individuals are almost always athletes or entertainers. So after this world tour of data points from 4 different continents, the video finally gets to the big finale. This is where it pulls all those threads together to state its ultimate and deeply controversial thesis. And here it is. After laying out all that data, the source presents its conclusion, and I'm quoting it directly. If this does not tell you that there may be some deficiency with the black man, then you are not prepared for this type of conversation. This single sentence. This is the core of the video's entire argument. So you might be wondering, why isn't this idea discussed more openly? Well, the video has an answer for that too. It argues that political correctness, and specifically the fear of being called a racist, is what stops this theory from being debated in the mainstream. The video drives its point home with one last sweeping statement. This is meant to be a summary of the patterns that it claims to have found all over the world.
And that's our breakdown of the source's argument. We followed its data points and its case studies across the globe, all leading to that final, controversial conclusion. The video presents one very specific worldview based on its chosen statistics. So, as we wrap up, it leaves us with a much bigger question to think about.